Hello and welcome to another episode of the Big Money Stylist podcast, you guys. If you're listening to this, I started this podcast about 5 years ago, kind of primarily talking to hairstylists. But I feel like this podcast can be bigger than just talking to more than just hairstylists. So I've been bringing a lot of entrepreneur women onto the show, and it's been an amazing journey. So I have a special guest on today's show. I have Stefani Capel, who we're friends, but you guys, I tell people all the time, I'm like, you're like super nerdy smart, but I love it. Like you have so much knowledge when it comes to dermatology and skincare. And I just think you're definitely somebody that I wanted to have on this podcast. Number one, because you're my friend, but I really think you have a lot of value and knowledge to share. And I want to hear a little bit about your personal story, because I think that it's like, you see people with success online, and I always want to know the story. There's always, some dark times or some hustle or some stuff to get to where you're at. But that's what makes you who you are, like I've had, struggles in my life and things like that, but it's how I built what I did. So if you don't mind, I want to kind of go way back. Yeah. We'll go way back, and then we'll talk about all the fun stuff, you guys. We're going to talk about like skincare. We're going to get her input on the hair extensions, on the scalp. I mean, I have a professional in the house, you guys. So if you don't believe me, you've got to believe her, because she's a professional. So let's go back. Like, first off, when did we meet?
Gosh, I think we met back in 2018-ish.
Okay.
And I think we'd both moved back to Orange County.
Yeah.
I moved to Orange County.
Yeah.
And I think
I was trying to think the first time we hung out. I think we went to Fashion Island and bought shoes.
And we bought shoes.
Right?
We bought those weird Louis Vuitton
and
shoes.
We both took them back. Did you take yours back?
In the moment, it was like we were the only two that bought those shoes.
Yeah,
like
that was so funny.
Weird,
that's what bonded us. We
bonded. We got excited about these shoes, and then we took them back the next day.
Yeah, that's so funny.
But yeah, I think that's when we first met.
Yeah,
and I remember at the time I had like tape extensions.
Oh my gosh, that's true.
You were like, no, you need to come see me, and I'm like, oh, okay, I'm down.
Yeah, now you wear MBR and you're hooked. You're
gosh,
like,
I'm hooked.
I'm not going back.
No way, it's the best ever.
Yeah, we've kept in touch though, like for the past like 5 years, and we're both like super busy. But
and we've both done so much in like 5 or 6 years. But yeah, we were able to keep in touch and still make an effort to see one another, despite businesses and kids and family and balance and everything else in between.
Gotta take the effort.
Yeah.
So tell us, I want to hear like your original journey. You have been a dermatologist for how long?
Gosh, so I've been in practice now. I mean, technically practicing dermatology for like 15 years now.
Oh wow,
long time. So, it is a really long journey. But you always say this: if you're passionate about something, you just have the drive and the motivation to keep going. But it is a very long, journey and a long path to become a physician, a surgeon. And you, as a woman, you still have, to keep in mind like having a family and when you're going to have your babies and marriage and juggling all the things that come with being a woman.
I think that being a mom and building what you've built, like I just feel like you're like a superhero. Like any woman, but seriously, like any woman who has children and builds this massive amount of success, it's hard. Because it's really like we have dual responsibilities, we're providing for our family and we're also raising our kids. And for me, I always tell Garrett, I'm like, I have to like tap into like masculine and feminine a lot.
Totally, me too. Like, I feel the same way.
You do good at that though. Like
you do good at that.
I see you with your kids and your fiance, and I feel like you're still very feminine, but yet you're crushing it in business.
Thank you.
So did you have your kids when you were in school?
I was still in school, and that was like the hardest part. And that's when you tap into like the masculine and feminine, because and I was usually medicine and is a more male dominant field, especially like I went into a surgical subspecialty, so I was surrounded by all of these men. So when I did have a baby and I was in school still, and I had to like leave clinic to go breastfeed really quick, and to breastfeed you need to be like relaxed and all zenned out, and I'd be like so stressed out in clinic in between surgeries trying to like breastfeed my babies because they were at the UCLA daycare, and UCLA was where I was training in school. Oh, wow. And I just would look at my male counterparts. I'm like, you're so lucky. You don't have to, you don't have to worry about these kind of things that women do, because, as nurturers and, even if you're in the workforce, that doesn't take away from, your desire to just take care of your family and your kids. And
did you always know you wanted kids?
I always knew I wanted kids.
Did you know you wanted to start young, or did it just happen?
I knew I wanted to start younger. And the thing is that the road that I took to become a dermatologist, it's about 15 to 20 years of school. So you can't wait until after you're done. I mean, to put it this way, I was pre-med in college, 17, 18 years old. And when I finished, I was 35.
Oh, geez.
And I went straight through,
and that's like just the start of things. Then you've got to build your brand and your practice.
Then you graduate and then you have to I wanted to open my own practice and, launch a skincare line and everything that came with that. But I couldn't wait. A lot of my female colleagues in residency and in medical school were like, we're just going to wait until we're done. Because when I got pregnant, I had my mentor saying, Stephanie, this is not a good idea. You should wait till after you're done.
Like, I don't want to wait till I'm 35.
I want to have my first baby at 35 or older. And then, I knew I wanted two. So of course I was calculating all this out, my timeline in my head. I'm like, I have to, have my first one at this time, 3 years apart. So it was really difficult, but I was always like a planner and had my whole life.
Would you would you do it differently? Or are you glad that you had them young?
I think I would have what I would have done differently is I wouldn't have sacrificed so much with like the hustle, and I wish I would have enjoyed my babies more.
I can relate to that so much because like I had my 2 babies and that's when I was building my brand and working crazy hours. Yeah. And I mean now I have 4 girls, but I that's what I try to do now with my second set of kids because I feel like that was the one thing I'm like I'm so grateful that I built my brand and everything, but I'm like you can't get those little moments back. Right. But your kids are still young. I see you at the beach with them all the time, and it's like even though you're like, I would have done that different, like everybody has their path.
Right.
And now you can kind of create your own schedule. You just took your daughter to like Bora Bora.
Yeah,
like,
we just went to Tahiti.
So it's like,
for her 10th
even
birthday.
though it's like you might have done that different, you're kind of making up for it now.
Right. And I think that's why I do things like that. Like, and being a working mom, it's easy to just, to be present and to be like an involved mom while you're working is a whole nother level.
Totally.
And a whole other, type of exhaustion, but definitely worth it. But I really want to be present with them because I did miss out on a lot when they were little. Like, I had my, babies in the daycare in the bottom of the hospital at like 3 months old. And like I said, I'd run down to breastfeed them and try to, be with them as much as I could.
That was like the hard journey. That's why like now,
really
like I'm sure there's still challenges, but because that was so hard, it makes the other
everything
challenges
easy. Yeah, it was easy.
Like this fine. You're like, I wasn't sleeping. I was working in the hospital. I was breastfeeding in between.
Exactly. I know. And I remember my other 2 co-residents like lived with their parents still at that time. They had their laundry done for them, dinners cooked, packed lunches. I'm like,
running around.
I got to melt it, feed them up all night. Of course the babies in their little mind, at least mine would be up all night and asleep all day. So I'd be up with them in a baby carrier, like bouncing them around all night while I'm doing my flashcards. Like, it just was nuts.
I think when you're young though, you have like more stamina and you just don't know any different. You're like, this is going to suck for a while, but it's fine.
True. I know.
Well, I love that you shared a little bit like more of your personal story because I think that's very empowering to women to see somebody like you and be like, okay, I can have a career and be a great mom. It's just like creating boundaries and making it happen for yourself.
Definitely.
So I want to dive into, I want to talk actually about a lot of things. I want to talk about hair extensions.
Yes.
And then I want to talk about choosing an expert in your industry.
Yes.
So, okay. So you guys, we have Stefani here and I see this all the time with the salon, but like I'll have clients come in and they're like, I have alopecia.
Oh yeah.
What is alopecia? And is this something that hair extensions can create? Or talk to us about the health in the scalp with hair extensions.
Oh, it's so important. Yeah. So alopecia in medicine just means loss of hair. And you can have scarring or non-scarring alopecia. When alopecia is non-scarring, that means that the hair can be grown back, after the insult, whatever that is, traumatization, too tight of hair extensions, any type of trauma that's in the endocrine system, like, after having a baby, having the
how would you know? Like, say if I'm a stylist looking at someone's scalp, how would I know if it's like going to come back or not?
Actually see the actual hair follicles. So when you look just like the pores on your skin, like the pores on your face, if you look at the scalp and you see little dots, that means that there's viable, which means alive hair follicles. If it's kind of like smooth over and almost like plastic looking or like marble looking, it's not coming back. And that's called the scarring alopecia. Usually with hair extensions, if for a prolonged period of time, they can turn to scarring alopecia where the hair can never come back. But for most intents and purposes, it's usually a non-scarring alopecia.
Yeah.
But what happens is with hair extensions that are too tight or pulling on the hair follicle, the hair follicles have a lot of vascular component to them. So it's just supplying nutrients to the hair follicle, which makes the hair shaft. And when that gets strangulated or cut off, because, you know, like traction alopecia, people have really tight braids, things like that, they get a widened part. That happens because the blood supply to the hair follicle gets cut off. And then the hair follicle sheds and then you can't make a new one. So that's why I love your NBR extensions, because
they're comfortable.
They're comfortable and it's not strangulating the hair follicle and you don't have alopecia, which, you know, we see a lot.
So it's due to just being too tight.
Too much pressure.
It's crazy too, because we've talked about this, like you can even have a tab extension or be too tight. Even though like it feels lightweight.
Right.
And then I mean, I've worn everything, but I remember like I'd take one out and I'd be like, why do I have all the white buds, the little hairs?
That's actually the cast of like the actual hair follicle.
So
those are like stem cells. Yeah.
So why, when they have, this is a random question, but when you literally like pluck a hair out and it has the bulb.
Those are like all the stem cells. It's called the follicular infundibulum.
I'm never going to remember that.
They're stem cells. You should like rub it on your eyes.
Really? I'm like, ooh,
regenerative stem cells.
So what does that mean? It's not going to grow back if you've seen that bubble?
It's kind of like the outer shed of it. So so the remaining cells within that hair follicle will grow new ones of that little cast. Cast that comes out.
I thought maybe it was like plucked out so much. So
no,
like
it'll still grow back.
There's no chance. Okay, so that's not too scary.
It's not too scary
if you see some of those. So what you really want to look for, you know, is that there's no little,
there's
like
there's still
smooth.
like little dots.
Okay. So do you just like thinking about the scalp, do you ever recommend any kind of treatments for women that might be suffering with that?
Right. So PRP or protein rich plasma or PRF, protein rich fibrin, which you basically take from your own blood sample and they spin it down in something called a centrifuge and they get the growth factors and the PRP or PRF and they inject it into the scalp. That's one of the best ways to regrow hair if it has undergone trauma to the point of alopecia.
It's crazy because I get postpartum hair loss, but that's different because it's not like the strangulation. It's hormonal, right?
Right. And that's called telogen effluvium. So that type of alopecia happens because whenever there's an insult to the body, whether it's childbirth or even like a really stressful event, say there's like a death in the family or a loss of a job, or there's like a really traumatic accident, say somebody's in a car accident or they get really sick with a really high fever, 3 months later, the hair fall, 3 months later, the hair will all shed. And that's because you always have, it's called anagen, telogen, catagen phases. The hair has different growth cycles. And when you're when you're pregnant, you're all in anagen phase. And then once you deliver the baby, they all shift over, like 50% shift to catagen and telogen and you shed all this at once. But usually that will grow back on its own. It just has to recover from the trauma of childbirth.
I did the PRP with my third baby. I lost so much. It freaked me out. Like I was like nervous it wasn't going to come back. So I did a lot of preventative. My last baby, I started doing the PRP like right away, right after I was done nursing. I was like, okay, I'm going to try. I do think it helps speed up the hair growth.
Right.
I will say it was a little painful.
Yeah, it is painful.
And I hate needles and I hate having my blood drawn. So.
Oh my gosh, that must have been torture.
It was. But I made myself, I think I did like 5 treatments and I do think it helps. So I think it's like, you're not going to, it wasn't like grew back like really full thick, but it did help a little bit.
Yes.
So I always tell people I've tried that and I do think that it works.
And it's painful. Yeah. Because it's viscous. It's a very thick fluid. Like, Botox, which is really watery when it gets injected, doesn't really hurt that much. You put a good injector. And then, but the PRP is such a thick fluid that it's like very, what we call viscous, so it goes in there. It's a little uncomfortable. I've never had it done personally.
You haven't? Okay. Yeah. I just felt like I didn't have another option. So I was like, I'll try it.
I think that's a great option.
I think it did work. Yeah. So those are great like tips for, people looking for hair extensions. MBR, that was one of the things for me because I have very fine, fragile hair. Yeah. So when I was creating this technique, I was like, less points of contact are super important, but also I knew like I've had too tight of extensions and I'm like, okay, if this keeps shedding like this, it's just not going to grow back. Like I just don't have a lot of hair. So I kind of wanted to get your like expert like opinion on it, but that makes sense. If you guys are experiencing any of your clients are experiencing a lot of hair shed, honestly, you need to check the system that you're using and the beads and the bead tension. So one thing I want to talk to you about next is, so it's funny because like my brand's called MBR and everybody thinks that all hand-tied hair extensions are the same.
Right.
They're like, oh, I have the hand-tied, I have those. I'm like, no, you don't. You have a totally different brand. You have a totally different system. So I try to educate, the marketplace on why MD-AIRE is different. Yeah. But I also think there's a huge gap in education when it comes to injectables, in fillers, in finding the right professional. Yes. So I want to dive into that next, because I, for years, thought I was getting Botox and I wasn't. Like, I'm like, I don't even know what I'm getting. So explain the difference of, like, I don't know if it's brands. Is it different brands of stuff that freezes your head?
Right. So there's different brands of what we call neuromodulators. So you can have Botox, Dysport, Xeomin, Daxify is now the long-lasting one. But there was a clinical case of people being hospitalized because there was like Botox being purchased on the black market.
Oh, wow.
And the thing with Botox, and there needs to be more regulation in our industry because dermatology and aesthetics is like this weird subspecialty of medicine because there's no accountability or regulation. Like, for example, if you're in a hospital and you're an orthopedic surgeon and you're going to perform surgery at the hospital, you have to provide credentialing and all of your certification to get qualified and get what we call hospital privileges to operate in the hospital. But like, if you have a med spa on like PCH, there's no accountability, and anybody can say, hey, I don't want to be a pediatrician anymore. I don't want to deal with insurance. I want cash business. I want to make a lot of money. Let's get into aesthetics. I'm going to buy Botox. Well, Allergan won't let me buy Botox because I'm not board certified. I don't meet the credentials, but I can get it from Korea on this black market and water it down, and no one will know the difference. So it's really scary out there. Scary. And that's where, is
it like watered down? I won't say where I went, but I've had some scary experiences with Botox, and there was a while where I was like, I swear this isn't not kicking in anymore, and I'm like, is it watered down? Is it black mark? What does that mean?
Down. Okay, so there's a couple different things that can happen. If it's watered down, they're trying to decrease the overhead, so they buy the same 100-unit vial, but then they dilute it with, instead of 1 cc of bacteriostatic water or saline, they use 10, so they get, it's like watering down drugs, it's the same thing,
or alcohol.
So what happens is, not only does it not take effect long enough, or doesn't kick in fast enough, but it can also migrate more. So you get dropped lids, you get a heavy brow, you get all these complications. So people water down Botox to kind of like cut costs. And if you're getting $8 a unit of Botox, question why that's a red flag, because you're probably watering the product down.
Well, and it's crazy too, because it's been like, is it a thing where, your body's just not responding to it anymore? Is that a thing, or is it
there is a little bit of truth to that. So especially because you work out so much, like me, I mean, we work out 6 days a week, and we'll blow through it faster. So there is a little bit of truth to that, but it shouldn't be like, it only lasted like a month. It's not like that. I think if Botox isn't lasting that long, it's because you may be metabolizing it, but it would be more like 2.5 months, not like 10 days or something.
Well, it's interesting too, as I get older, I feel like I need more. So I almost feel like I go through it faster, but I'm also getting more lines. So true. I tell people, I'm like, well, if you're getting older, maybe you need more Botox. Does that make sense though?
Yeah, that does make sense. I think in your case, maybe because you work out so much, your metabolic rate's probably higher even now than it was maybe before, when you weren't. So because typically you need less as you get older, even though you're getting older, you almost like become accustomed to it, and so you usually don't need like that much more, maybe like 5 or 10 units more.
How often, if somebody's looking to do that, what do you recommend? Like 3 months?
Yeah, usually like the tried and true is about 3 months, or 3 to 6 months, depending on, someone's level of activity and how fast they metabolize it. And then Daxify, which is a longer lasting neuromodulator, and I'm not sponsored by any company, so I just speak freely about these companies. I'm probably the only non-sponsored dermatologist left out there, but I'm my integrity is there. But Daxify has been giving us longer results. Now, the company said like a year. I wouldn't say it's that. I would say it's more like 6 to 9 months, even for myself personally.
So what should somebody, I mean, obviously like you want to find, so I feel like so many people can inject now.
Yeah, I know.
So what should you look for? Because I really do feel like there's just a lot of people offering it. So what should somebody look for? Yeah, what should they look for when finding a professional?
I think the most important thing is to see if they're board certified. Now, if they're a nurse practitioner or an RN, just ask them, how long have you been doing this? Because what happened was during COVID, everyone wanted to get out of medicine and get into a more lucrative cash-based business. And so people will say, I'm a critical care nurse for 20 years and I'm going to inject your Botox. Well, you're not having a heart attack. You'd want her to help you if you're having a heart attack, but you don't want her her injecting your Botox.
Right.
I don't care how long she was a CCU nurse.
It doesn't translate.
It doesn't translate, but people surprisingly will be like, oh, he's a cardiothoracic surgeon. He's going to do my lip injections. And I'm
hear
like,
that
no,
all the time.
You know, because we train in residency and fellowship, we learn our craft really well. But like, I couldn't do open heart surgery. I mean, maybe I could, but
I love that I love that you're touching base on that, because I have so many friends, and like even my nanny, we were talking. She's like, I think I'm going to go do it. I'm going to go get Botox. She never had it. She's like in her 50s. Yeah. She's like, I found this doctor at Kaiser, and he's board certified. And I was like, wait, like for me, I'm like, but wait, does he do Botox? What does he do? Or does he do what do you call it? What's the technical name for it?
Injectables.
Injectables. Yeah. I'm like, does he do injectables or? And she's like, no, but he's board certified. And I'm like, well, what is his specialty?
Right, exactly. That's the question to ask. Like, are you board certified? Because people say, I'm a board certified dermatologist. And you'll say, I'm board certified in family practice, but I'm injecting Botox. So just say, what did you gain your board certification in? Or what did you do your residency? Was it pediatrics or OBGYN? Okay. I just had a patient the other day who came in with a complication. She's like, oh, I went in for my annual pap smear and my OBGYN offered me Botox. So I'm like, why would you get it?
I've heard that too. You know? I've heard that too.
Or your dentist or what, which is fine. But it's just like
so my dentist, this was way back in the day, but 20 years ago, like I lived in Vegas, and my dentist was literally like, we should do some filler. And I'm like, sure. I let him do lip filler on me. And it was bad. They were like, I swear he like did it wrong. I don't know. But since then I've tried a little bit of everything, but I think it's so important to just like, ask. Like and find out.
Don't be afraid to ask. You know, I think people get so intimidated. Yeah. Like, I feel bad asking. They're like, if you're going to let them touch your face, say, what are you board specialized in? You know, where did you do your residency training? And how long have you been doing this? Like, you know, they're like, I've been injecting for 20 years, but they were injecting, you know, in the ICU, not, you know, aesthetics. So people are very, I've seen in this industry, it's very misleading, but then, you know, because consumers or patients like can't tell
they don't know
the difference. Yeah. So those are the questions to ask. And I have a whole YouTube channel on like what to look for in an aesthetic provider and kind of the things to look for.
Yeah. I think that's education is so important so that people know kind of like what they're investing in. Like you said, it's their face.
Yeah, it's your face.
I'm always like thrown off when somebody's trying to get a discount. I'm like, but it's
not your face.
Yeah. I'm like,
do that with like a workout, you know, or like studio. Or
anything
like
on your face, or anything. Or it's like, don't go to somebody who's really good at rhinoplasties for a boob job.
Exactly. Like, exactly. It's the same thing.
Yeah. You're like, they know how to do surgery, but like maybe that's not their niche. Yeah. Same with hairstylists. I'm like, you're not going to go to somebody who specializes in a certain like color and then they're like, hey, I can do some extensions. I think I watched a YouTube video. You're like, oh no.
Definitely. So
I think that I'm so glad that you kind of like touch base on like what to look for and how important it is to like find a professional. Yeah. So I want to talk about your practice. Like, because when you first moved here, did you open your practice right when you moved here?
I did. So I had actually finished two fellowships actually, and I moved down to Southern California and I worked with a partner of mine, and then, you know, it just got too busy too fast. And
that's right. Okay.
And then I opened my office, and it's been smooth sailing.
Did you know you wanted to open your own place?
I did.
You did? Okay.
I always had it in the back of my mind. Yeah. Because I just wanted, you know, having kids and being a mom, I wanted to kind of make my own hours and just, you know, make my own schedule and just have enough time with them. You know, so basically my hours are like 10 to 2 or 3. So I can be present for my kids in the morning, make them breakfast, get them off to school, and then work, and then I come home and then take them to surf practice or, you know, ballet. I'm exhausted all the time, but I feel very fulfilled. But that balance is hard.
Yeah. I know. I tell Garrett all the time. He's like, you seem stressed. I'm like, I'm always stressed, but I'm very happy.
I'm good. I'm happy.
I'm very happy. I'm just always stressed. But I've been really impressed with like you moved here, and it seems like a short period of time. And I feel like you're probably one of the top OC injectors and like crazy good with the lasers.
Oh, thank you.
So I feel like you have been somebody that I've watched, not an overnight success because that's not a thing, but you have a lot of drive, you have a lot of passion, and you're very smart, and you educate the clientele what to look for. What's been the hardest thing in like opening your own space? Because like I'm sure that's not easy. Well, I know it's not easy.
Right. I think opening my own space, you know, I wish I could like clone myself, you know, but you can only do so much with your own two hands. And I think the hardest challenge is, you know, if people get upset that they can't get in to see me for 6, 9 months, even a year, sometimes people don't understand, but we're doing the best we can. And, I have an amazing laser nurse provider who's a specialist who actually trained with me, but as my nurse, who's incredible. But it's hard because I just wish I could scale myself, because you can only do
I know
so much with your own 2 hands. And
it's I do believe, especially with injectables, it's like an art.
Right.
Like I think some people just have a really good eye for it, because I've been doing Botox for like 20 years, I swear. Right. And I just think that you are one of those people that has an eye for it. So it's hard to train that.
Right.
You're like you said, it's hard to replace. You might be able to, have somebody work with you, but they're not you. Right.
Yeah,
but I'm
teach that sometimes.
So you do have a girl that does.
I do.
Oh, that's
Stephanie,
good.
She honestly, I waited 4 years for her to join me because we trained together. She was actually my MA when I first, started my first day of my fellowship, and she was highly skilled. Like I could just tell she speaks the laser language and like the scientific language. And so you can tell when people aren't well versed that they're not as knowledgeable. But she's like, I want to be, I want to be your laser nurse. I want to work with you. I want to do these lasers myself, not just assist you. So I'm going to go to nursing school, and I've been waiting for her, and super picky with whoever I have in my office, but I've been waiting for her, and she's amazing. So it's been really good.
So you could tell she kind of had the talent for it and understood it. So what
true.
do you like doing more? Do you like doing lasers, or do you like doing
I love
both,
lasers.
or?
I mean, I love injectables too, but I feel like lasers are such a very it's such a expert skill set that not a lot of people have, and just seeing, that's why med spas will have like things like IPL or like Morpheus or microneedling, but to find like a true laser specialist who understands how to work the lasers, like lasers do things that just no other devices can do. It's just hard to find someone.
I get scared of lasers.
Yeah, you should be.
I don't know, but I would trust you. I've had you do a few treatments on me, but I never know what to look for. So I even think that is like, it's important to find somebody who's very well versed, because you don't want to cause the skin more damage. Is that even possible? Like if somebody did the wrong laser or go too deep, how does that work?
Yeah, so you can cause scarring or like pigmentation. And one of my area of expertise is like treating skin of color with lasers, because a lot of doctors will say, you're not a candidate, your skin is too dark, or like you'll hyperpigment. But knowing like I have a whole subspecialty fellowship training in like treating darker skin tones, which is really satisfying and gratifying to me. And then, it's really hard to find specialists who have that skill set. So then that sets you apart from all the thousands of other providers.
I'm sure not everybody needs like it's like not everybody needs the exact same laser. Right. And even then it's probably like a level of the intensity they need.
Right.
What do I need? What kind of laser?
You don't need anything. You're perfect.
You know what? Okay. You know what's been bugging me? I feel like my skin's pretty clear, but I hate my my neck and chest. Like it's starting to look older than my face. No. What do you do for that?
Usually Fraxel or like a CO2 or Clear and Brilliant. So there's different lasers. There's kind of like small, medium, large with the level of like strength or aggressiveness of the treatment. So Clear and Brilliants are pretty easy. No downtime, no pain. Fraxel's kind of middle of the road, but it's still non-ablative, meaning it's not as intense. And then there's like a CO2 or Erbium, which is a little bit more gnarly, which you do not need.
I don't see, and I never know, but it's like I want to do all the little things.
Right, exactly.
To kind of maintain.
Right.
But it's interesting too, though. I have a lot of pink in my undertone of my skin. And good. So I'm like, can a laser fix that?
Yeah, no, it can't. That's usually a V-beam laser.
Oh, okay.
So I'm going to get scientific for a second. It's a 595 nanometer wavelength laser that is attracted to the redness. So hemoglobin is the chromophore. That's what it's attracted to. And it's it's like they get the red out laser. So there's different lasers for everything. And that's what makes it so rewarding, is because if someone has a little bit of pink undertones or they have hyperpigmentation, or say they have fine lines and wrinkles, there's different lasers that do their job, and you can tune it up or tune it down with the settings and the wavelengths, and combining different lasers for each individual patient, which is really
it's like
gratifying.
Customized laser treatments.
It is, definitely.
So if somebody's looking to find somebody to do, they don't know what they need, it's like me. Right. Do you do consultations with everybody?
Usually,
and just make sure they know what they're kind of getting into as far as downtime and everything?
Yeah, we'll do a consultation first, and then just say, the patient will say what is bothering them or what they're looking to correct, and we'll pick out a whole, regimen. And usually you can do all the lasers at the same time. So, just knowing what combination of lasers is best suited for him or her. Yeah. It's really, but that's what makes my job so fun. And but not everybody's doing that. You won't find that in med spas, just because that takes 20 years of school in order to know which lasers. You're literally customizing like a laser process for them to give them the best results. I always,
I'm always like scared to try stuff. And so I'm like, but I would trust you. I'm like, okay, just do, but I'm like more on the conservative side. If you have somebody who's nervous, would you recommend just kind of easing them into it?
I never, and I'm actually a pretty conservative provider anyway, because just as a patient, that's how I want to be. Less is more.
Right.
You know,
and build up
patients like the results and then they come back, but that's why I never do packages.
Oh, good.
I never like, you know, I just want them to come back because, you know, they get a taste of what the results look like and, you know, and then they'll come back for that, not being overwhelmed by too aggressive of a treatment.
I think that's a great, I mean, I'll do the same approach with hair. I'm like, hey, I can do a gazillion highlights, but we're going to start you really conservative to almost like to gain their trust.
Exactly.
Get them comfortable. And then you're like, I'm going to recommend a little bit more based off of like the, you know, when they come back. So I want to talk about, we got these goodies on the table.
Thank you.
You created your own skincare. And I'm so excited to try all these. You've given me some samples before and I literally went through them and I just need to like drive up and go buy more. So I want to know, first off, why did you want to create your own line? Was this always something that you were super passionate about? Or is it just because you're so educated, is it like you wanted to create something based off of what you saw with the skin? Or
yeah, so I think just I've spent my whole life studying the skin and looking at under the microscope and you know, seeing how skin responds to certain actives under the microscope and like histologically, and just knowing what active ingredients need to go in the skin, how to get them there, how to keep them stable, and how to make them most effective. It's like you can't not start a skincare line. You're like, I know too much. Your brain, I know. And just keeping up with like board certification, you know, as a dermatologist, I'm up to date on all the latest and greatest technologies. And I don't want to have to wait for a skincare line to like, it's 6 years for them to incorporate these new developments into the products. I want them like right now for myself and for my patients and my loved ones. So the impetus to do it was because I remember when I first graduated. I remember I went to this lecture on pharmaceuticals and I said, how long until these new pathways that we just discovered are going to be in our skincare lines that we use? And they're like, oh, it takes like 5 or 6 years.
Oh,
you know, have to
and that's outdated.
It's corporate. Then it's like not. And I'm like, well, I want it now. So I also remember leaving the lecture hall and all these big skincare companies would come to me and say, do you want to be our formulator? You know, all these big pharma and companies would say, you know, they all want dermatologists to formulate because, you know, I don't care how much money they have the information. So I'm like, instead of doing it for these skincare companies, I'm just going to make my own line because I know exactly what needs to go in these products. And it's like my little protected boutique.
You literally like knew the ingredients and everything. I do the
ingredients and I have a personal chemist who I hand selected.
Oh, wow. I was going to ask who does those?
And me. And he's a genius. He's well beyond his years in his understanding of science. And I literally can just be, you know, taking my board recertification exam with all these new developments and I'll send him the scientific papers and then we brainstorm how we're going to formulate it, engineer it, run the assays in the lab. And it's just really fun. It's kind of my creative outlet. It sounds fun. How many products do you currently have? Gosh, I think we have about 9 or 10 now.
Is that considered like a full line?
No, I mean, it is a full line. You don't have to use everything. You know, every skincare regimen can be overwhelming. But we were talking about this earlier, you know, a retinol or a vitamin C, a hydrator, eye serum. It just depends on what fits with what your skin needs are and what your skin responds to. So skincare can be so overwhelming. And it can be expensive.
I was going to say, I love investing in good products, but I get overwhelmed. What's some advice you could give, you know, when it comes to just how to apply your products and what you need?
So I think starting just basic and simple, like simplify your skincare routine. Like if you want more of like an anti-aging effect, you know, being on some type of retinol or vitamin A derivative at night is usually helpful. Being on a vitamin C or an antioxidant in the morning is always good for brightening, tightening, just kind of rejuvenating the skin. And then being on, you know, a good hydrator, which can help hydrate the skin, you know, and kind of provide a barrier support and barrier correction in the skin is always important.
It's almost like as needed, huh?
Right, as needed.
Because I try to like look at my skin, I'm like, oh, I'm more dry. And so I'll add like a little extra of this or that. And then I'm like, I have a firming cream. What does this do? And then I'm like,
it can be overwhelming.
It can be overwhelming. I have like my go-to, like I'll use my retinol at night. Why is retinol, I feel like I hear a lot of dermatologists say that that's kind of like a must-have. Is it just because it turns the skin over?
It has the most research and data behind it. So whether it's like a retinol or retinaldehyde or like a tretinoin, which is like retin-A prescription strength, it has the most overwhelming data and evidence supporting like cellular renewal, stimulating collagen, stimulating elastin, all of those proteins in our skin that we lose as we gain wisdom and have birthdays. And so it just kind of upregulates your skin to act and behave younger because as we get older, our skin cells stop producing collagen and behaving like they used to. So it's kind of like a workout for your skin. It's stimulating your cells to act and behave younger on a cellular level that makes your skin as beautiful and glowing, you know, clinically. So
when you're, if someone comes in to see you, do you kind of just recommend based off their skin what they would need kind of in your line?
Usually, right. And they'll kind of tell me what their sensitivities are. And most of my products are engineered for my patients with sensitive skin. So it's all in like the vehicle delivery systems, which is the science of it, which is so fun. But
what's your skin called, or what's your your line?
Yeah, so it's called MD-AIRE. It's actually a very scientific term because AIRE, A-I-R-E, is what we call a signal transduction pathway in the skin for rejuvenation. So it's the antioxidant induction response element. And I had to put an MD on the front end of that name because there was some air conditioner company or something.
So MD-AIRE.
MD-AIRE.
Oh, I love it. Cute. And I love the packaging. It's just like clean and I love it.
And it's all airtight and nitrogen lined containers because, you know, you got to protect the gold in those products.
I was like, what's your favorite on the table? All of them?
I would have to say the one that's not on the table is the vitamin C because we're always out of that one. I'll bring you one. We can never keep that on the shelves. They just fly off the shelves. But the vitamin C, just the way it's engineered, is really next level.
Is your vitamin C in a dropper or is it like a cream?
No, it's in an air pump chamber, which is important because when it's in a dropper, it gets oxidized to the atmosphere and it decays and it's unstable.
I'm so glad you told me that.
People,
I don't know. It's like not all vitamin C is created equal, you guys.
Definitely not at all. And you need an L-ascorbic in it, and a lot of formulators will skip out on the L-ascorbic because it's the hardest to engineer and formulate, but it's the most impactful vitamin C.
You even know about like the packaging. You're like, no, this is what it has to be this way. You have to protect
the product. Yeah.
I love that.
So it's been really, really fun.
So what's the name of, tell them the name of your YouTube channel.
Oh yeah. So it's just my name, Stefani Kappel MD. And I wanted to do a YouTube channel to kind of educate and empower patients because as we were talking about before, I can't help the fact that people are, you know, watering down their Botox and doing lasers when they shouldn't, hurting people. But I can give people the information to kind of protect themselves and make wiser decisions when it comes to treatments they're going to get or products they're going to use and things of that nature.
It's like almost like your way of giving back, you know, as a professional. You're like, hey, I can't stop you from doing this. But if, you know, you have all this knowledge, I always tell people, if you have knowledge that you're withholding, you're being selfish.
Exactly.
I'm like, I'm sorry. Like we need to know this stuff.
I know. And I feel like after spending 20 years of my life in school, it's going to be a waste unless I share it for the greater good. And I honestly like feel so good about it. Like it makes me so happy to be able to share information with others that's going to have a positive impact on their life. So.
Yeah. You did a YouTube video talking about your hair and I was so appreciative that you did that. Like I'm sure people ask you about your hair. But we get a lot of people that are like, oh, I saw Steph's video on your extensions. I was like, yay.
No gatekeeping. I'm full of full disclosure. And I've been, I'm 47 now, but I've been doing lasers since I was like 22. Good. And I talk about all the things that I do for my skin all the time.
She looks 25,
everything now. It's all no gatekeeping. I think it's so important to share with other women, like, you know, tricks of the trade.
But you still have a very like youthful, natural look. And I think that a lot of times people can they can really take it off the ledge.
They can.
So and
and I actually stay away from fillers now that I'm older.
Oh, really?
Because when I was in my 20s and 30s, I was doing all kinds of fillers.
I heard it can does it migrate?
It can migrate sometimes and it just makes you look older.
I agree.
You
start to look like, kind of too puffy in weird areas.
Yeah. So I'm all about lasers. Tightening devices, lasers, I'm all
about
that now.
I'm always like, Steph, what do I need? Am I ready? What do I need? I'm ready. Fill me in.
No, you're still
But I've heard people say they're like, no, don't do lasers. But I'm a big fan of like just doing little things.
Less is more. That's the thing with everything.
So what would you, if you're me, what would I do next?
I would just
hang out.
I would just keep up whatever you're doing. That's
drinking lots of water.
That is really important. I think, you know, exercising, a clean diet, you know, plenty of water, getting good sleep, which is probably the one thing you and I don't do enough of. But I do think that, you know, your skin's an outward representation of your internal health. So all those things actually do play a big role.
That's so funny that you say that because people will ask me like a lot about like skincare or whatever. And I'm like, I honestly think, there's all the things, but it's also, internal, like you said, internal. It's like feeding your body, like drinking all the water and all the things. I didn't, in my late 20s, I was hustling and I never ate, I just drank a coffee all day. And like, I looked older, like my skin looked thinner. I always had bags under my eyes. And as I've gotten older, I've been taking better care of myself. So I think that's super important for just like maintaining that youth as we get older is like slow down and take care of your body.
Slow down and take care. Now
I guess
we
we're
have
not
time
slowing
to do
down,
it.
but
Yeah, but we can take more self-care time. I actually leave my older YouTube videos up because in my 30s, I look haggard. Like
really?
you should
That's
look
how
at
I feel.
my old videos are so horrible, and people will always say like, "Ew, why do you look so bad?" And I'm like,
so
"That's in my
funny.
30s. Now I'm in my 40s."
You're all
but now I can
show.
now I can take care of myself and try to drink water and eat clean and work out.
But it just goes to show also like what you're doing.
Right.
Yeah.
True.
It's funny. I look back, same thing. I started at my YouTube channel forever ago, and I look back and I'm like,
oh gosh.
Even my hair, I'm like, it was like when the ombre thing was really popular. I'm like, why are my roots like black and my ends are like blonde? It's like, why?
Yeah, I know. That's so funny. I know. Well, we got to keep it up.
I know. We got to keep it up. Well, you guys, you heard it from Stefani here. She is very well educated, very passionate. She's a mother, a business owner. And so I wanted to have her to come on the show. It's been so fun having you here. Yeah. I could literally like pick her brain forever, but I don't have time. So I guess I'll just go watch her YouTube channel, and so should you. So if you guys want more information, you can follow Steph on your Instagram. What is your main Instagram page?
It's just my name, Stefani Kappel, MD.
Easy.
Stefani with an F. It's
you're Stefani with an F. So go find her out. If if you're in the Orange County area, definitely go to her, check her out. If anything, just get more information, because I think that's so crucial when you're investing in yourself. You really want to find like an expert in whatever it is you're looking for. So thank you so much for being on the podcast, you guys. If you're a hairstylist and you want more information about Natural Beaded Row hair extensions, you can go to mbr.education. If you live in the Orange County area and you want to experience Natural Beaded Rows, I have a salon. It's called DKW Styling, and you can go to dkwstylingsalon.com and come get some amazing hair and hang out with me and Steph. Yeah. All right, you guys. Thanks so much for tuning in, and we'll see you next week.